today's video, I'll show you how to create the layout of the Snapchat app along with the camera using React Native. The camera component we're going to be using is going to be from Expo. As you can see here in front of us, I have my phone connected. If I just raise that up here, you can see that the camera is on. You have all the buttons that look like the actual Snapchat app. If you want, you can flip the camera over as well, and you have the forward camera working. If you just come to the app, it first opens up with the camera. Then if we swipe left, we have the chat screen. If we swipe right, we have the stories screen. And if we swipe down, we get the search screen. And going up, we have the memory screen, just like the real app. In this video, I'll show you how to set this up. So let's begin. So to start with, as always, I have an empty project created here with Expo. We'll start by installing two dependencies. The first one is going to be native base, as always, the UI library I love. So we'll say npm install native base. It gives us some nice components that makes our lives easier while trying to make complex UIs. And the next one is going to be called React Native Swiper, which is going to help us set up the swipe navigation in our app. So we'll say npm install React Native Swiper. Once that's done, there are times when you get this red screen. Just run npm install to get rid of that. It'll make sure that all the other dependencies that are required are installed. And then just reload your app and you're good to go. So let's first set up the swipe navigation. Let's import some things from native base. So we'll need the container and the content from native base. And let's import the swiper from React Native Swiper. Let's get rid of this view here and put in a container. The complete app usually goes inside this container. Inside that, we'll put in a content, which is basically a scroll view, and then we'll put in the swiper. Inside the swiper, we'll just put in three views. Call the first one chat. The second one will be the camera, and the third one will be stories. If we just save and refresh that. So as we can see here, we're getting these three dots here, and we're getting the text here, which is at the top. If we swipe, the dot changes and the screen changes to camera, and then it changes to stories. So let's just change the style of this and bring this into the center. So let's say constant styles is equal to style sheet dot create. Let's call it slide default. Give it a flex of 1. Justify content of center. Align items of center. And a nice blue background color. Let's apply these styles to each of the views. And we'll also just create a style for the text. So change the color to white, increase the font size to 30, and give it a font weight of bold. And we're getting an error here. We can get rid of that error by removing these duplicate styles at the bottom. We see that that's gone. Let's add the styles to the text as well. And there we see it looks a little better. And if we swipe it, we can easily tell that that's the camera screen, stories, and we have the chat screen. So right now the app opens up first with the chat screen in front of us. We want to have the camera screen as the first screen. Also, if we scroll over the end, it comes back to the first screen. That's a feature we want to remove. And we also want to get rid of these three dots here at the bottom. That we can easily do by adding some props to the swiper. First thing we want to do is add loop equal to false. This will make sure that you cannot swipe over the last screen and come back to the first screen. To remove the dots, we'll set shows pagination equal to false. And to start with the camera screen, we'll set the index equal to 1. Assuming that the first index is 0, 1, and 2, we want to start with the first index. Let's save this and try this out. As you can see, we're starting with the camera screen. The dots are gone. We can scroll back, and we cannot scroll over anymore. Now we need to enable a vertical scroll in our camera screen so that if the user swipes down, we get the search tab, and if he swipes up, we get the memories tab. So what we'll do is here we'll put in another swiper and move the camera screen inside that swiper. We'll duplicate the camera screen to create 2 more screens. Name the first one Stories and the third one Memories. And we'll add some props to this swiper. So as always, we'll say loop equal to false, shows pagination equal to false, and we'll set horizontal equal to false as well, so that the user can swipe vertically. And again, we'll set the index equal to 1, as we want the camera screen to be the first screen. So once we save that out, let's see. We can swipe vertically, we're getting the story screen, and we swipe down, we get the memory screen. But there's an issue here. If we swipe left on the memory screen, we go to the chat screen. Or if we're even on the story screen and we swipe left, we go to the chat screen, which is not the experience that we want. We only want the user to be able to swipe left or right when he's on the camera screen. So let's fix that. We're going to use a prop called onIndexChanged. And that's going to call a method passing in the index. Let's call that method vertical scroll. And before we create that method, let's change the stories to search actually, because when the user scrolls vertically, we want it to go to the search screen and not stories. Now coming here to the top, we'll first set up a state. So we'll say constructor. We'll say this dot state is equal to, and we'll call it outer scroll enabled, and set it by default to true. Next, let's create the method. So it's called vertical scroll. Pass in the index. And here we'll check if the index is not equal to 1. That is, if it's not the camera screen, then set the outer scroll enable to false. This dot set state. Outer scroll enabled false. Else set it to true. So all we're doing is we're telling it to check if it's the camera screen, only then allow horizontal scrolling. But if it's some other screen, do not allow it to scroll horizontally. So as we can see, when we come to the search screen, we can't scroll horizontally. And when we come to the memory screen, we can't scroll horizontally either. It only works on the camera screen. So the basic UI of the Snapchat app is complete. In the next video, we'll start by setting up the camera.